You're banned from Thanksgiving until you apologize to your cousin. Mom's voice crackled through the speakerphone, sharp and final, like a judge slamming a gavel. In the background, someone laughed, a quick, careless snicker that stung more than the words themselves. She can eat leftovers in the garage. Uncle Ray's voice cut in, his tone dripping with mockery. As if I were a stray dog begging for scraps. My fingers tightened around my phone, the cracked case digging into my palm. Who do you think paid for the turkey and half those groceries? I said, my voice low but steady, each word a deliberate step into territory I'd never dared to tread before. The line went silent, except for another muffled giggle. Probably Aunt Patrice, who always had a knack for stirring the pot and walking away clean. We don't need your little contributions, Mom snapped, her words slicing through the static like a blade. Learn some respect. Okay, I whispered, barely audible, more to myself than to her. Let's see what happens when I stop paying. I'm Olivia Grant. I'm 27, a junior financial analyst with a knack for turning messy spreadsheets into clean plans and late bills into paid receipts by the deadline. I'm not the loud one at family gatherings, not the one posting curated Instagram stories about my perfect life. I'm the one who's been footing the bill for years. The one who stepped up when Dad's heart surgery left us with a pile of medical bills insurance wouldn't touch. It started small. The family phone plan, then the internet, then a surprise copay, then just until next month. My quiet, yes, became the foundation everyone stood on. My bank account the safety net they never thanked me for. I wasn't rich, I wasn't glamorous, but I had something they didn't expect. Discipline, receipts, and a backbone that grew stronger every time they laughed at my beat-up 2008 Corolla parked next to their gleaming SUVs in the driveway. Has your family ever treated you like this? Like you're the ATM they don't acknowledge? The one they expect to keep giving while they roll their eyes at your effort? Drop it in the comments below. Where are you watching from? I read every single one. And here at Warth Stories, your voice matters more than old family rules that never protected anyone. Let's build a community where we celebrate the strength it takes to choose ourselves. That evening, the group text pinged, a notification that hit like a slap across the face. Final head count for Thanksgiving. It read, followed by a cascade of names scrolling down the screen like a guest list to a party I'd helped fund. My name wasn't there. I stared at the glowing text, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, heart pounding in my chest. I typed, "Did you forget me?" and hit send before I could second-guess myself. Cousin Dylan's reply came almost instantly, sharp and smug, like he'd been waiting for his moment to twist the knife. Limited seating. Try Christmas if you behave. The 3 dots blinked on the screen, taunting me, as if they could spell out the truth I'd known for years. My place in this family was conditional, tied to what I could provide, not who I was. I called Mom. The phone pressed so hard against my ear it left a red mark. In the background, I heard the clink of dishes, the hum of laughter, the buzz of a party that had already started without me. "You're not invited until you apologize to Dylan for ruining his promotion dinner," she said, her voice flat and rehearsed, like she was reading from a rulebook I'd never been allowed to see. "By ruining, you mean asking why he keeps borrowing rent money while he's supposedly crushing it in sales?" I shot back, the heat rising in my chest, burning away the hesitation I'd carried for years. Uncle Ray's voice boomed through the line, "There she goes again, the budget cop." His laugh was loud, performative, meant to dismiss me. I swallowed hard, forcing the lump in my throat down, and said, "You want drama? Then stop using my debit card on autopay." A door slammed on their end. A sharp crack that echoed like they didn't believe me, like my words were just noise to be ignored. The call cut off, abrupt and final. 10 minutes later, Aunt Patrice texted, "Don't make this about money. Family comes first." Then she posted a gratitude photo on Instagram. A long table adorned with candles, plates piled high, everyone tagged but me. Their smiles were polished, their glasses raised, their lives curated for the world to admire. I put my phone face down on the counter and stared at the peeling paint on my apartment wall, feeling the outline of a decision I'd seen coming all year. It wasn't anger driving me, not yet. It was clarity, cold and sharp, like the edge of a knife I'd been sharpening in silence. On Thanksgiving Day, my social media feed was flooded with their posts. Golden brown turkeys, creamy mashed potatoes, pumpkin pies with perfect lattice crusts, captions gushing about the best family ever, and cherished traditions. My phone buzzed with a separate text from Mom, short and clinical. "We saved you a plate. Porch pickup." Like I was a delivery driver, not her daughter. I drove by that evening, the streetlights casting long shadows across their manicured lawn. The neighborhood quiet except for the faint hum of holiday cheer behind closed doors. The foil container sat on the porch, a sad, solitary offering, its edges curling in the cold. A neighbor's tabby cat sniffed at the corner, pawing at the foil like it was claiming my leftovers. I left it there, on purpose, and drove away, the image of that plate searing into my mind. A symbol of everything I'd been to them. Convenient, disposable, expected to be grateful for scraps. Black Friday morning, I went to the bakery down the street, hoping a coffee and an everything bagel could trick my brain into feeling normal. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside, the air warm with the smell of fresh bread. Aunt Patrice was there, standing by the counter, her purse slung over her shoulder like a shield. She spotted me and waved me forward, her smile tight and condescending, like I was a child who needed herding. She leaned toward the cashier, a young woman with a nervous smile, and said, "She's sensitive about success. Keep the small talk short." Like I was a warning label, a problem to be managed before I embarrassed anyone. The woman behind me in line, an older lady with a scarf knotted loosely around her neck, muttered, "Ouch," under her breath. The cashier kept her eyes on the till, her fingers moving faster than necessary, punching in orders with a quiet urgency. I felt the heat creep up my neck, the familiar sting of humiliation, but this time it wasn't new. It was just another entry in the ledger I'd been keeping in my head. I walked out without my bagel, the bell jingling behind me, and sat in my car, staring at the dashboard. My breath fogged the windshield, and I waited until the cold air cleared it. Each exhale a reminder that I was still here, still breathing, still choosing. The humiliation wasn't new, but the way I felt it was less like a wound, more like a signal, telling me it was time to move. That afternoon my phone rang. It was Dylan, his voice breezy, like the past few days hadn't happened. "Yo Liv, front me $600 for my girlfriend's Christmas gift. I'll Venmo you Friday," he said, casual as if he were asking for a coffee run. He paused, then added, "And we'd all feel better if you just said sorry and stopped being difficult." I didn't answer right away, letting the silence stretch, heavy and deliberate. He filled it with, "You know, family takes care of each other." The words landed like a rehearsed line, one I'd heard too many times to believe anymore. I hung up without a word, opened my notes app, and started typing. Dates, amounts, reasons. Tires for Dad's truck, $450. February 2023. Meds after his surgery, $320. July 2023. The electric bill they forgot twice, $180 each time, September and October 2024. The internet that somehow kept getting paid, $75 a month for 3 years, totaling $2,700. None of it was one time, even when they swore it would be. I scrolled through my banking app, cross-referencing each entry, my fingers moving with the precision I used at work to untangle corporate budgets. Each number was a piece of a story I'd been too afraid to tell. Until now. Around dinner time, Dad called. "Just a quick $300 for a deposit before the bank closes," he said, his voice light. Like I wasn't at work every day too, crunching numbers for a firm that didn't care if I took a lunch break. In his tone, I heard how easy my yes had made everyone else's life, and how small it had made mine. I typed a line at the top of my notes. "What they don't know is about to save me." Then I turned off notifications and let the phone buzz itself, tired on the couch. Each vibration a reminder of the demands I was done meeting. What they didn't know was that I had every receipt, every bank screenshot, every text saved, who asked, when they asked, what I paid, and how they promised they'd handle everything else next time. What they didn't know was that I still owned the family phone plan no one bothered to transfer, the internet login they never questioned, and the autopay authorization on their mortgage they'd forgotten was tied to my debit card. What they didn't know was that Grace, my mentor at work, had sat me down 6 months ago over coffee and said, "Boundaries are love with a spine, Olivia. You've got the spine, now use it." I'd been practicing on my spreadsheets ever since, moving one bill back to its owner, then another, testing the weight of saying no. I wasn't planning a dramatic scene. I was preparing a mirror, and the numbers were going to do the talking. I printed everything. Every transaction, every text, every broken promise, and slid the pages into a cheap black binder I bought from the office supply store down the street. On the cover, I wrote in bold black marker, "This is what I did for you, and this is what I won't do anymore." The words felt like a vow, not to them, but to myself, a promise to stop trading my worth for their approval. On Saturday, I met Grace at a quiet cafe on the edge of town, the kind with wooden chairs that creaked under our weight and coffee that tasted like it had been brewed with care. I pushed the binder across the table, the vinyl cover catching the light. She leafed through it, her face calm but focused, like she was auditing a client's books. When she hit the totals, $12, for 50 over 3 years, meticulously documented, she sucked in a slow breath. "Olivia," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine. "You've been a safety net, not a daughter. It's time to cut the net." "Walk me through it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, my hands wrapped around my coffee mug for warmth. She nodded, her fingers tracing the edges of the pages. "Notice sent, authorization revoked, account ownership changed, all clean, all legal, all simple once you decide you're done." Her words were like a map, clear and precise, and I followed it step by step. On my way home, I opened my banking app and moved through my checklist like crossing stepping stones over a rushing river. Revoke mortgage autopay, done. Remove saved card from the electric company, done. Port the family phone plan to a prepaid account in my own name, done. Let them set up their own. Each tap on the screen felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. A small act of defiance against the years I'd spent saying yes to keep the peace. Have you ever had to draw a line like that? To say no to people who thought your help was their right? Tell me in the comments. What did it feel like to finally stand up for yourself? Your stories keep this community alive, and here at Warth Stories, we're all about celebrating the strength it takes to choose yourself over someone else's expectations. On Sunday night, Dylan posted an Instagram story. A table groaning with Thanksgiving leftovers, a caption that read, "Real loyalty isn't about money." The comments were full of clapping emojis and heart eyes from cousins, aunts, and family friends who didn't know the half of it. I muted him and watched my screen go quiet. The silence feeling like a victory instead of a punishment. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to respond, to explain, to fix it. I let the silence be. Monday, I was in the hardware store buying light bulbs for my apartment when I heard Uncle Ray's voice in the next aisle, talking to someone I couldn't see. "We've got her in line now," he said, his tone smug, like he was sharing a secret. "She'll come around." I froze, my hand hovering over a pack of LEDs, my heart pounding. But I didn't turn around. I didn't confront him. I paid for my bulbs, tucked the receipt in my pocket like a small promise to myself, and walked out. That evening, Mom left a voicemail, her voice starting calm but turning cold halfway through. "Since you won't apologize, skip Christmas too," she said. "And don't embarrass us with your loan spreadsheets." Like the truth was an insult, like my boundary was a threat. I listened twice, then deleted it and sat very still in my quiet apartment, the binder resting on my coffee table like a silent ally. 2 days later, Mom called again, her voice frantic this time, high-pitched and unsteady. "The mortgage didn't clear," she said, as if the world had tilted off its axis. "Olivia, what did you do?" I felt something settle in me, like a stone finding the bottom of a lake, solid and sure. "I'll come by," I said, grabbing the binder, my voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through me. At their kitchen table, with the blinds half open and a cold cup of coffee sweating onto a coaster, I set the binder down between us. The room smelled faintly of the lavender candles Mom always burned to keep things civilized. But there was nothing civilized about the tension in the air. "This is private," I said, glancing toward the hallway where I knew Dylan or Aunt Patrice might be lurking, ready to turn this into a family circus. "No audience." Dad sat across from me, his face gray around the mouth, his hands folded like he was praying for an easy fix. Mom's fingers twitched toward the binder but didn't touch it, her manicured nails catching the light. "We thought Dylan was helping," Dad whispered, his voice thin. like he was trying to convince himself more than me. I turned the binder to face him, flipping to the first page. He told you that because I was paying it, I said, pointing to the highlighted transactions. $1,200 for the mortgage in June, $800 for groceries in August, $450 for tires in September, $320 for prescriptions in October. Mom's hands shook as she turned the pages, pausing at the list of electric bills, internet payments, phone plans, the phones in their pockets, the ones they were probably using to text about how ungrateful I was. 3 years, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. 3 years of me. You banned me from Thanksgiving until I apologized for asking questions. So I stopped paying for the holiday you enjoyed without me. And I'm done funding the parts of me you're ashamed of. The front door opened and Dylan walked in, his sneakers squeaking on the hardwood like he owned the place. He stopped dead when he saw the binder, his eyes narrowing. You're really doing this? He asked, his voice sharp, like my choice was an act of aggression instead of self-preservation. I slid a clear sleeve across the table, his text requests highlighted in yellow. Need $200 for rent, Venmo Friday. Car payment $350, I'll get you back. The dates, the amounts, the promises he never kept. He scanned them, his jaw tight, and looked up, but no words came out. You can call it betrayal, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. But it's a boundary. Dad rubbed his forehead, his fingers trembling. We didn't know, he said again, like repetition could rewrite the past. Mom stared at the totals on the last page. $12 for 50 over 3 years, and her eyes got wet. We would have thanked you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I shook my head. No, you would have kept me paying. I stood, because sitting made me feel small, like the girl who'd always said yes to avoid a fight. I'm not asking for anything back, I said, and both of them looked surprised, like I'd just taken away their last excuse. I'm just done. From now on you handle your bills. I tapped the binder once with my finger. I left notes on which accounts you need to call, and how to set up your own autopay. I'm not your bank. Dylan opened his mouth, closed it, then said, You can't just leave them like this. My laugh came out soft and tired, like air escaping a balloon. I'm leaving them like adults, I said. Which you also are. He looked away first, his shoulders slumping, his usual bravado nowhere to be found. Dad tried again, his voice thin and desperate. What about Christmas? I'll see how I feel, I said, and I meant it in a way I'd never allowed myself to mean anything in this family before. I tucked the binder under my arm and walked out into a bright, ugly afternoon that felt cleaner than any holiday table I'd been left off. The air was crisp, the sky too blue for the weight of what I'd just done. But as I slid into my car, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a skin I'd been carrying for years. On the drive home, the light turned red at the intersection, and a sudden rush of fear hit me. What if they cut me off for real? What if no one called again? What if I'd just burned every bridge to the only family I'd ever known? Then the green arrow flashed, and I turned, my hands steady on the wheel. I realized I'd been living in fear of that silence for years, tiptoeing around their expectations, paying for their approval with every dollar I didn't have to spare. Maybe their silence was exactly what I needed. Have you ever had to walk away from people who took you for granted? What did it cost you? And what did it give you back? Share your story in the comments. Let's build a community where we don't apologize for saving ourselves. You're watching Warth Stories, where betrayal meets justice, and strength is the only currency that matters. By the next week, the group chat lit up with a new message. Who can help reorganize bills? Followed by a string of awkward emojis, praying hands, a sheepish grin, and 0 volunteers. Someone tagged Dylan, and he sent a single eye roll emoji before the chat went quiet. I watched the dots appear and disappear, feeling nothing but relief. Aunt Patrice posted a quote about humility on Instagram, something about family over pride. And for the first time in years, no one tagged me under it. Dylan's weekend photo dump slowed. Fewer dinners out at trendy bistros, more nights in with old board games and dim lamps. The kind of quiet evenings I'd been living for years while they spent my money. Mom texted me a recipe for her green bean casserole. Like nothing had happened. Like sending me a list of ingredients could erase the porch plate and the years of silence. I didn't respond. 2 days later, she sent a longer text. I didn't realize how much you did. We'll figure it out. I read it twice, my thumb hovering over the reply button, but I put my phone down instead. That night, I made tea in my small kitchen, the kettle whistling softly as I balanced my own budget. The numbers looked simple, clean, when they only belonged to me. My apartment felt bigger somehow, the silence less heavy, the space more mine than it had ever been. I wish I could say there was one big apology, a tearful family meeting where everyone hugged it out and tied the story up with a neat bow. There wasn't. Instead, there were smaller things, fragile and imperfect, like cracks letting light through a wall. Dad called to ask how to set up autopay, his pen scratching as he wrote down the steps I gave him, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "Thank you, Olivia," he said, and I could hear the effort it took him to say it. Mom paid a bill late and covered the $35 late fee herself without asking me to fix it. A first in 3 years. Dylan stopped texting, which might have been the most honest thing he'd done in months. Grace checked in a week later, her voice warm over the phone. "How's your piece, Olivia?" she asked, and I could hear her smile through the line. "Quieter," I said and meant it. "It's like I'm learning to breathe again." I kept the binder on my shelf, not as a threat, but as a memory of what I'd let go and what I'd chosen instead. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the parts of me I'd given away too freely, the pieces I'd traded for a seat at a table that never really had room for me. A week before Christmas, Mom called and said, "If you want to come, there's a seat." Her voice had less iron, more air, like she was testing new ground, unsure of her footing. "Is there also respect?" I asked, my voice calm but firm, and we both let the question hang there, heavy and unanswered. "We're trying," she said finally, and I believed she meant it, even if she didn't know how yet. "I'll think about it," I said. And after we hung up, I sat in the dark with the tree lights on, the room smelling of pine and orange peels. I thought about how many times I'd bought peace with my money, called it love, convinced myself it was my role as the responsible one. I thought about the plate on the porch, the cat who probably had a better Thanksgiving than I did. I thought about the moment at the kitchen table when the numbers finally said what I never could without being called dramatic. I realized I never wanted to go back to being the person who apologized for saving people from their choices. On Christmas Eve, I took a walk in my neighborhood, the air sharp with the promise of snow. Windows glowed with warmth, families gathered inside, their laughter spilling out into the cold. A couple argued softly through an open window, then laughed, their voices blending into the night like a melody. A kid pressed his face to the glass, watching snow flurries catch the streetlight, his breath fogging the pane. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Dylan, the first message since the binder. "I didn't know," he wrote, the words stark on the screen. Then a second text. "I'm sorry." I stood under a bare oak tree, its branches casting jagged shadows across the sidewalk, and read the messages twice. I didn't reply, not yet. I turned off my screen and kept walking, each breath feeling like it belonged to me, each step a choice I was making for myself. New Year's Day, I cleaned my apartment from top to bottom, the kind of deep clean that feels like a fresh start. Under a stack of old mail, I found the worn envelope where I used to tuck receipts for family emergencies, bills I'd paid, promises I'd believed, debts I'd carried. I threw it away without opening it, the weight of it lighter than I expected. On my laptop, I made a new folder called Plans, and listed things I'd been putting off. A photography class at the community center, a coding boot camp I'd bookmarked months ago, a savings goal for a trip to Banff, where I could hike in the mountains and breathe air that didn't carry anyone else's expectations. I drank coffee that I didn't rush, listened to a playlist that wasn't trying to calm me down from anything, just music that made me want to move. In the afternoon, Dad called. "We set up the autopay," he said, and I smiled because he said we, not you. He paused, his breath audible through the phone, then added, "I'm sorry for making you feel like a purse." The apology sounded raw, new in his mouth, like he was learning the words as he spoke them, testing their weight. "Thank you," I said, my voice soft but steady. "That helps." Later that week, I passed the bakery where Aunt Patrice had waved me forward like I was a problem to be managed. I went in, the bell jingling above the door. The same cashier looked up, Her smile genuine this time, no trace of pity or caution. "What can I get you?" she asked. "Everything bagel, toasted, cream cheese," I said, like a person ordering breakfast on a regular day. When I stepped back onto the sidewalk, I took a bite, and it tasted like something simple, something that didn't owe anyone anything. The air was cold, but the sun was out, glinting off the frost on the pavement, and I felt like I was walking into a life that was finally mine. I'll be honest, sometimes I still check the group chat and feel a sting when I see a thread of inside jokes I wasn't there for. Photos of cousins laughing at a dinner I wasn't invited to. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being stubborn, if I'm holding on to resentment instead of letting go. Then I remember the porch plate, the binder, my own voice in that kitchen saying, "I'm not your bank." And I know I'm not being stubborn, I'm being whole. I keep a sticky note on my fridge that says, "No" is a complete sentence. It's silly, but it helps when someone tries to turn my boundary into a debate, when Aunt Patrice sends a passive-aggressive text about family unity, or Dylan hints at needing just a small loan. I don't owe anyone a PowerPoint for why I won't pay their phone bill again. Spring came, and the air turned soft, the first daffodils in the median looking like tiny yellow hands waving hello. Mom invited me to dinner, no occasion, no conditions. I went, hesitant but curious, my car parked in the driveway where my Corolla no longer looked out of place. We ate pasta with store-bought sauce, the kind Mom used to scoff at, and talked about nothing serious. Weather, a new coffee shop downtown, the neighbor's dog that keeps digging up tulips. Every few minutes, she looked like she wanted to apologize again, her eyes darting to mine, then away, her hands twisting a napkin into knots. She didn't say it and I didn't push. I let the quiet heal on its own. Let the absence of demands feel like a conversation in itself. When I left, she hugged me. And it lasted a second longer than usual, like we both recognized the cost of that hug and paid it willingly. 6 months later, I stood in my apartment, now cluttered with new things. A camera from the photography class I'd started. A notebook filled with coding notes. A plane ticket to Banff pinned to my fridge next to the sticky note. The binder still sat on my shelf, its pages untouched, but its presence a reminder of the line I'd drawn. I'd been invited to a family barbecue, the first since Thanksgiving, and I'd gone, not because I owed them, but because I wanted to see what had changed. Dylan was quieter, his usual bravado softened, and when he offered to grab me a drink, I noticed he paid for it himself. Mom asked about my job, actually listened when I talked about a promotion I was aiming for. Dad mentioned they'd paid off a credit card, his voice proud but not boastful. It wasn't perfect, but it was different, like they were learning to see me as more than a solution to their problems. I don't know what next Thanksgiving will be like. Maybe I'll be at the table, passing the mashed potatoes, laughing at Uncle Ray's bad jokes, feeling like I belong without paying for it. Maybe I'll take that trip to Banff, drink cocoa out of a paper cup, watch snow pile up on mountains I don't have to climb. What I do know is I won't be buying a seat with my silence, or my bank account. I won't be the porch plate, the autopay ghost, the daughter who trades her worth for scraps of approval. Their silence didn't hurt me, it freed me. And that's the truth I'm carrying forward, one step at a time, one receipt at a time, one boundary at a time. Subscribe to Warth Stories for more true tales of betrayal, justice, and the strength it takes to stand up for yourself. If you've ever had to prove your worth to those who doubted you, tell me your story in the comments below. Where are you watching from? Let's make this a place where we don't apologize for saving ourselves, where your voice matters more than old family rules that never protected anyone. Thanks for being here, for listening, for sharing. You're the reason these stories matter.